Hello, 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 and welcome to another episode of Cincinnati Soccer Talk. This is CST episode 384. This is your fill-in host for the evening, Brian Weigel. Excited to be joining you as the stretch run to the end of the season begins this weekend following the League's Cup. FCC travels down to the Sunshine State to take on a Leo Messi-less Inter Miami. But before we get into that, we have a lot of breaking news from this week. We have some transfers, some non-transfers, a crash out in the League's Cup, and a whole lot more, plus a brand new forward for FC Cincinnati. But before we get into all of that, let's bring in my cast and cohorts for this evening. We have our host of the Jersey Swap podcast, Jeff Tebbets. How you doing, Jeff?
Hey, good to see everybody tonight. It's been a little bit of a while since I've been on the visual part of the CST, so it's good to see everybody. Also, it's good to have the Cincinnati Open back. That was fun this week. I didn't like it with all the rain canceling things and pushing things back, but I got to go to one of the more exciting night events there, and it was a lot of fun. I can't wait to do it next year.
That is one of the only sporting events in the city that I've not gone to. I've gone to the NASCAR races and everything else, but not much of a tennis guy. But we'll check that out with all these new things going on. We got from the, I guess, the East Coast, CST East Coast, we're going to say, Josh Dye. Welcome back, Josh. How you doing, man?
Thank you. I'm doing great. I got to celebrate the company picnic today, so it was great to be able to get back in time to jump in. I'm glad there was a spot open.
What's an ESPN company picnic look like? Is there do you see all these cool people or hanging around the host, or is it like two parties, like the people on air and the people off air?
No, it's definitely everyone kind of mingles. So they rent out the local amusement park, and it's just all you can eat, all you can drink. It's a big old shindig. So you get to mix it up with some interesting folks. It's always weird to look behind you in the beer line and be like, that person makes way more money than I'll ever make. So
Disney stock prices up, so they can run out of park for you guys. That's awesome.
Tell me that you saw like Stephen A. Smith on a roller coaster or something like that.
No, he does
now. He's in Fox.
He's too cool for school, maybe.
He does not come to Connecticut. There's a 0% chance he comes.
I was going to say, I'm trying to think of any of the soccer personalities that would be at ESPN anymore besides the Sebastian Salazar.
Dan Thomas, if you're familiar, MLS mainstay, Ali Moreno. Was a frequent flyer there. So those guys are great. I got to work with them a lot back when I worked on that show. So
very cool, very cool. Well, my other Brian for this show, Brian Biedenbach, joined us again 2 weeks in a row. How you doing, man?
Yeah, doing well, man. Coming off a couple soccer games we're coaching this weekend, so that was a lot of fun. And Josh, I got to say, man, like coming off of a company picnic that was all you can eat, all you can drink. At an amusement park, and you're here to talk to us tonight. So I'm just really impressed by that.
The takes might get spicy because I do have to work, so I was responsible, but I also made do.
All right.
Glad to
have you. It's been a while.
Is the amusement park better or worse than Kings Island?
It's worse. It's worse. I've spent many a time in Kings Island, and this is a nice, quaint, small park, so it's fine, but you could do it in a day. You could do it in like 3 hours.
Kings so this Island isn't like a Six Flags or something. This is
no. This is a nice, small, tiny little thing. It's nice. It does the job, but it's no Kings Island, which is also no Paramount's Kings Island.
Oh,
I'd have a petting zoo or something like that.
Six Flags Kings Island. All right, guys. Well, I'm glad y'all could be here for tonight's show. And real quick, just want to give a quick shout out to one of our great sponsors, Apollo Home. If you have an HVAC, plumbing, or electrical need, reach out to Apollo Home. They've been serving the greater Cincinnati and southern Dayton areas for over 110 years and would love to help if you ever need anything. With the cool weather, maybe you need a furnace tune-up too now. We'll see what happens here. It's crazy weather here in Cincinnati. But Glad to be with all y'all here. Let's give a quick rundown of the show for this evening. It's going to be a little bit different. We'll do a quick best and worst. Then we're going to have a friend of the podcast, Matt Baker from Flyover Footy, come in to give us a quick scouting report on the newest FC Cincinnati forward, Nicholas Gioacchini. We're going to talk about some of the missed targets that FC Cincinnati had, and of course, the upcoming Tuesday press conference that Chris Albright's going to have to explain, I guess, what happened in the window. The League's Cup crash out, and then looking ahead to the rest of the Major League Soccer season for FC Cincinnati. So without further ado, we're going to kick it off with Brian Biedenbach for best and the worst. Brian, what was your best and worst of the week?
Yeah, I'll start with my best. This was a stretch, man. This was a hard week to find a best. I don't know if you guys are in the same boat I am, but it was difficult. But I went with Sergio Santos, that we've not shown much love on this show here this season, for good reason, I think. It came alive a little bit in this last match against Philadelphia, showed some heart, showed some hustle, and got some targets on frame that I haven't seen him shoot in a while. Got some balls across the front to Kubo off the post, which could have changed the dynamic of that whole match early on. But no, I think Sergio Santos played well. I haven't seen him play with that much heart in a while. So maybe a stretch. He was a little dangerous-ish, but I'm going to go with that one. My worst, though, is I love games where there's a lot of emotion. There's a lot of scoring, and it's back and forth. So we brought the game back from 2-0 back to 2-2, but then to be on the wrong side of that roller coaster, like I felt like I fell off after that third goal. Like nothing else was happening after that. So that's my worst, is just sitting watching the match and feeling really down and then really high, and then it all fell apart. So yeah.
Yeah, I was going back and forth with that for my best and worst as well, Brian. Completely agree there. Jeff, what was your best and worst of the week?
Let's go sort of like a post Leagues Cup version of this. I'll say that my best is that, we get some time to rest and sort of, get ourselves back to like the positive side of a healthy roster. This team with Acosta at 80%, 90%, you throw in these two purchases that are, I should say, a rental and a purchase that we've gotten in the transfer window. Hopefully Assad comes back earlier than later. I think we can still make a run. I think we can still surprise someone like a Miami and even Columbus at home. I think a lot of these cards have to fall the right way, but I'm still going to look at it on the bright side and call that my best. The worst is, Miami couldn't hold their part of the deal because they crashed out of the Leagues Cup. That means that the game is still on Saturday, and that means no Pat Noonan on Saturday. So we're going to be without our captain of the captain. So it's going to be hard to really see the ship steered. The last time that he missed a game, we really looked lost against Red Bull, I think. Red Bull. And so if we can do well without him, fine. But it does not look good if we don't have our head coach where he needs to be.
I mean, I have a lot of faith in Dom Kinnear, Kenny Arena, Ricky. I mean, all these guys have been quality, but we'll see what happens with Messi, no Messi. Of course, you're going to get a heck of a run out there against Miami, who can pull a lot of different levers. So definitely going to be a challenge for our assistant coaches. Josh, what's your best and the worst?
My best, I kind of touched on it earlier, just, have the time finally to join the show. I'm incredibly always grateful that you guys allow me. Like Jeff, it's been a long time since I've been able to get on, so I am incredibly grateful. I'm not unappreciated that you guys let me yell into this microphone at you for a little while. But in the real terms, the striker options are now aplenty and versatile, more importantly. Gioacchini is going to add another little. I know we're going to get into him in a little bit, so I won't dive too much into this. But this attack now, obviously everything runs through Lucho still, but I think the attacking front line is going to be as deep as it's ever been for Pat Noonan. I think you have the options now to kind of mix and match and throw different things at the wall, and hopefully something sticks in a game where you can run Kelsey out there to be a hold up play, or run Gioacchini out there to be the kind of false nine, running in behind and eating up space and doing all the different things that you want to do with them. And then you can bring Santos off the bench to stretch a defense. So I'm super excited to see what this striker lineup looks like now with some new blood. My worst, as we have seen throughout the last couple of games, we should probably be still talking about a game that FC Cincinnati is playing but we aren't, because they can't finish still. For whatever reason, this bug keeps running through this team, and it has through the last 2 years. It seems when push comes to shove, this offense can't find the final touch, can't find the final finish, really, to put teams away or to put teams over the edge, put the comebacks over to the edge. I mean, that 2-2 pulling it back in was incredible, and then you immediately fall back and you have opportunities. I mean, Lucho Acosta once again has to carry this team on his back, because in a first half where you had 3, 4, 5 different chances to score goals, this team is shooting right at keepers or shooting it over or just missing the final technical touch. So one thing is hopefully Gioacchini can bring is the finishing touch that this team is missing, because they've left some points and some results out on the field this season.
Let's go to some of our listeners. Joseph Best, we showing a spirit again after schwacking Miami. Worst, the transfer window and the number of matches left to secure supporter shield. Comparing schedule opponents to Miami and the West Coast, still have games versus LAFC, Columbus, Philadelphia, Miami this weekend. So it's going to be a tough road for FC Cincinnati. Jay Best, not much, but I thought Kelsey had some pretty good hold-up play when he came in, but we didn't capitalize. Worst, can't be but be disappointed in what was seemingly a very lackluster transfer window. My best and worst is I kind of like what Brian said. I love seeing the fight from their fight from the team, clawing themselves back into the match. I think that's a big lesson that they're going to be able to take with them into playoff time. That's I mean, being able to come back from down to everything is against you. That it's a mature team that can come out and do that. You know, you saw teams last year in the playoffs go down. I mean, you saw our upcoming guest here shortly. I'm sure he can relate to going down versus Sporting KC in the playoffs with St. Louis. I mean, that's not something that's necessarily easy to do, is come back in these high intensity matches. My worst, I don't think it was an awful transfer window, but this was the window where you had to make a big move. And that big move didn't happen. Yes, Gioacchini is a good move, and I'm sure it will help shore up things. But I think I put this on Twitter. I think there was 2 other moves that didn't also were not made, in bringing in a fullback and bringing in additional midfield help. When you have 2 senior roster spots, when you have potentially $1 million in allocation money mixed with the salary cap left, so that's very disappointing to me, and I'm sure we'll talk about it at the next segment here after our guest. But speaking of our guest, I saw him pop in here. We're going to add him to our stage real quick. We do have a friend of the podcast, Matt Baker of Flyover Footy. How you doing, my friend?
Doing well. How are you guys?
Doing wonderful. Thank you very, very much for taking your time out of your busy schedule to come on and talk to your East Coast rivals and FC Cincinnati. Very, very appreciative that you could come on and talk to everybody tonight.
Yeah, happy to be here. Thanks for having me on. I'm iffy on the circumstances, but always good to chat soccer nonetheless.
So we're getting a bunch of questions. What's Nicholas Gioacchini like? What's his strengths? What's his weaknesses? Why did he have 10 goals for St. Louis, 0 for Orlando, and very lackluster numbers for Como? So I wanted to bring you on here. You're the source for St. Louis. So give us a quick little background of Gioacchini. Of course, he came to you guys in the expansion draft in Orlando. Where did he slot for you guys, and how did he succeed in their one season in St. Louis?
Yeah, he's a striker. That's the easiest way to put it, is if he's not put in a striker role of some kind, he doesn't seem like he's going to succeed. And I think that's why Orlando struggled with him. They played him a lot deeper than St. Louis ever attempted to. And that's probably one reason why they exposed him to the expansion draft in and of itself, because they didn't know how to use him. They didn't really have a spot for him. And so St. Louis was going into that expansion draft looking for a striker. They had Klaus. They were looking, we now know, at Simon Betcher at the time, even, who we just signed. But because they were kind of surprised to see Nico Gioacchini made available, they scooped him up and they put him to his best use, which is up top. Now, right off the bat, we had Klaus, and so we had an out-and-out number 9. Nicholas Gioacchini was never in contention for that out-and-out number 9. And so that's why you had if you follow his season, you look through the specific game by game, you see kind of ebbs and flows. You see where he struggled to break into the starting 11. You see that he was there and he changed roles. He was there in a 4-4-2 once he joined with Klaus, and then Klaus was injured at the beginning of the season in April of last year. And so he took that out-and-out number 9, struggled for a few games to score goals, eventually found his rhythm, found his groove, and then at the end of the season kind of slotted back into that backup, that change of pace striker when Klaus returned. So what I see Nico Gioacchini's biggest strength is, it's with the ball at his feet scoring goals. He's not going to be a playmaker underneath. He's not going to be a midfield role, a winger. If he's given an opportunity to be a striker, he will succeed. And I honestly think, from what I've read and what you guys are probably going to slot him in as, he was basically using St. Louis as a trial run of sorts for what you guys are going to use him as. The biggest area that he struggled with at St. Louis was the out-and-out number 9 when Klaus was injured. He scored a couple goals. He had some success prior to that as the second striker, and that's my opinion where his best strength is as the second striker, playing off a number 9. When he had to take over for Klaus, he struggled. That's where St. Louis's first downturn of the season was in April. It was when Klaus was injured. We didn't have that pure number 9 who is comfortable being the holding line striker, the target, and not doing anything with the ball underneath. Nico Gioacchini became accustomed to that role out of necessity. St. Louis had to use him because at that point, Sam Adeniran had already been sent out on loan. We didn't have another striker. He was given the reins and he was given the ability to go game by game and grow and learn. And so he eventually became comfortable with that. He eventually scored buckets of goals for St. Louis, getting into double digits. And so now you have a Nico Gioacchini who ended 2023 comfortable in both striker roles, either as the sole number 9, as the second striker. He can do anything in that attacking third. And that's not even talking about his defensive efforts, which I think are a lot more impressive than a lot of people give him credit for. But it goes to when he left St. Louis and he was signed by Como, you're seeing a dip in his numbers because, again, Como kind of has just abundance of riches. They scooped up pretty much any signing they could get their hands on in their push for promotion. And Nico Gioacchini, I think he had a total of about 180, 190 minutes with them in about half a season. They just didn't utilize him, didn't give him a chance, similar to Orlando, just for different reasons.
Hey, Matt, sorry, this is Jeff Tebbets here. I think basically when I look at him, I worry a little bit about his lack of play, but I think a lot of fans here in Cincinnati are also worried that, we're getting a player that we really don't know enough about. I mean, do you see any sort of red flag? I know you're a St. Louis fan, but do you see any red flags regarding his type of traits?
He struggles if he's asked. He still struggled as that single striker, I think, and that's where St. Louis never gave him a chance when Klaus returned, whether they didn't feel comfortable in that role or not. I think he's a little unproven still over a long period of time. So going in the back half, the back third of this season, if he's going to be your single striker, he still has yet to prove himself over time in that single role. But what I do think he offers is his ability to press. He's a very intelligent player. And so St. Louis's press, it evolved over the course of the season that it started with the striker role as that single push point. And so you had to make the decision as a striker on when you're going to initiate the press. It's not out and out press as hard as you can for the entire 90 minutes. It's be intelligent in when you're going to pick and choose your moments. And that was Nico Gioacchini's job. And I think that's one of the top 2 or 3 things that he did well for St. Louis is he knew when to press, and he's got the stamina, the fitness to keep it up for 90 minutes if he has to. And so he makes those intelligent choices. He makes the smart calls in where to position himself on the field. And he does that offensively as well. He's able to find space in between the lines. He can move between the channels very eloquently, and he gets himself into good positions. Finishing was a problem last year. So getting himself into good position, but still having to finish with the ball at your feet. He struggled at times. He was a little inconsistent in that regard. But as a St. Louis City fan, I'm used to the inconsistency. We've struggled with that with every single striker we've ran on the field. So if I were you guys, I would be looking at that and saying, we hope it's a system thing with St. Louis, that there was some spacing issues between teammates and you've got better quality underneath for Cincinnati, that maybe he'll have more sustained success.
Well, I think that leads into a question I had for you, Matt, is from what I've seen of Gioacchini, he's a pretty sure-footed striker. And that's something we haven't seen a whole lot of in Cincinnati. Someone up top that can hold the ball, not the hold up play, but that can actually dribble with the ball, move with the ball. Until this year, we've moved Kubo up. We moved a few others up top there. So he looks pretty sure-footed. But from what I've seen, the goals that he scored have come off runs to the post, crosses in one time. He finds the space, he gets in. So you say he struggles to score with the ball at his feet. I guess that maybe answers a little bit of my question, is where have you seen him scoring? Is he better with the ball at his foot up top, or is he better making those runs in? Are the highlights legit from what I'm seeing?
He's definitely fancy with his feet. I think he's better with his run-ins. I don't like him in the Olivier Giroud type role, where he's just kind of waiting for the ball to come to him and he receives service and then he puts the ball in. I think he's a better playmaker with the ball at his feet. And he struggles if he's too close to goal with those at times. I think if you give him space, if you let him work, playing off a number 9, and like I said, is my favorite way to see him play. But I do think he's better in space, in that, I'd say 15, 18-yard range, doing something with the ball and then making a move. So he can score when he's given service on that first touch, but he's really well adept with the ball at his feet, making a play around a defender. And I think he's strong in that regard. And he can deliver service. He can feed the ball off to other players, but especially when he's given the ball and given space to work in the final third, he can make magic happen.
And he was a great a piece of business for St. Louis last year. I think you guys got $2 million for him.
Yeah, off a free expansion draft choice. That's a pretty great deal. And that was kind of a shock for St. Louis. You know, we knew that he had potential. We knew that he wanted to go to Europe, obviously with his men's national team experience, trying to get back into a top 5 league, because he had played in Ligue 1 with France, or in France rather. And so he had those ambitions, and we knew that was a long-term goal of his, but it did kind of come out of nowhere. And the price was even shocking for St. Louis, I would say. That, you know, double-digit goal scorer, yeah, that's great. But like you guys pointed out, that was the first and only time that he's done this in his career. And so it seemed like sticker shock, even from our end, in the good deal that we had for him. But it wasn't too surprising given the fact that he had the potential that he showed in France. So it's kind of a body of work where, like, I go back to places that they didn't know how to use him. Orlando, most notably, where his career could have just been squandered if he didn't find a better opportunity. Thankfully, he did. And I think it was just a sticker shock for St. Louis, because that was the first piece of business that we really did. And so to have that initial player from that initial season be sold so expensive, you want to set the bar at that level. And we just had the bar set pretty high early.
Yeah, Matt. So, you know, FC Cincinnati obviously is looking to rebound from what many will assume is a disappointing crash out of Leagues Cup and arguably a disappointing transfer window. But Gioacchini can come in and I think make some things happen. But I think fans have expectations for this team. So in your opinion, you know, what kind of realistic expectations can you expect from Gioacchini with just 9 games left to go, you know, plus some playoff games? You assume at this point that FC Cincinnati is going to be a playoff team, at least make it to the first round. So what would you hope or expect that realistically this team could expect out of him?
I'd say a goal every 120 to 150 minutes. is a pretty good expectation. And that's coming from the ebbs and flows that he had with St. Louis. And I would say he has the potential for more if he's given more play time. One of the things I think he struggled with a lot is that he had, and this is kind of speaking to Bradley Carnell as an initial manager for St. Louis and how he utilized Gioacchini. It's very inconsistent in his play time and in his positioning. So he had Klaus, Gioacchini, and Sam Adenor at various times. And the only one who had a consistent role was Klaus. Gioacchini oftentimes struggled to break into the starting 11 because Klaus was there. He struggled to find a consistent spot in the attack between the striker, second striker. So his roles are being asked to do different things. And he had the consistency last year when we talked to him to say, I feel like I just need to play and I need to work through everything I'm doing. So when he had his first struggles with St. Louis, playing time got him out of that. The consistency, the confidence, if he's shown trust by the staff to play consistently, he can make good things happen. And I think that inconsistency led to a lot of the stops and starts that you saw when you look at the game flow that he had with St. Louis. So if he's given the opportunity to be your out and out number 9, and he's given the keys to that kingdom, so to speak, over the course of a few games, stick with him, because he might go a game, maybe 2, and he might not score a goal. He might be a little frustrating in his ability to finish. But I promise that if St. Louis was any indication, he'll get those goals. He'll find his rhythm. For us, it took a short amount of time, but it wasn't like a turnkey situation where he came in, he immediately started scoring goals with players that he had never played for. But he does excel with quality around him. And that's one of the things that I think St. Louis struggled to keep consistent as well. So the quality underneath can help facilitate his goal scoring a lot more quicker than I think it did for St. Louis.
Awesome, Matt. Before we get you out of here, we do appreciate you jumping on the show tonight. Of course, FC Cincinnati was linked to another forward in Josh Sargent, who's a big St. Louis guy.
Come on.
Taylor Twellman's out there talking about another team. Are we going to have to battle for Josh Sargent in the offseason, Matt? I need your deets here.
It's round 2 or 3 at this point. We battled for an MLS team itself back in 2017 or whatever. Now we're battling for the services of Sargent. I don't know what it is between our two towns, but this was a shock. Not a shock that Sargent would have interest shown. Kind of a shock to me that it seems like it was a lot closer than I care to admit. But St. Louis, if there's one thing that nobody expected, was to be linked to a player for double-digit millions of dollars, let alone 20 plus. So if Norwich's asking price is 25, I would have said that price is St. Louis out of it. But Josh Sargent is unique. He's special, not just in St. Louis and what he means to St. Louis, but in the landscape of soccer. The stories from Twellman and Tom Bogert, they carry weight of this is the marquee star that you bring in, and he will sell the bejesus out of your merchandise in the lead up to the World Cup. This is a guy who would be worth it. And if there's one single player that I think the St. Louis ownership would be willing to spend $25 million on, it is Josh Sargent. So I hope that we are in a bidding war for his services in the offseason.
Could be a very, very interesting offseason. Real quick, Matt, could you give us a quick rundown of your guys' show? It's a tremendous show. I try to listen as much as I can when we're dealing with St. Louis or playing against teams that you just faced off.
Appreciate it. Yeah, we Flyover Footy, we do podcasts 3 times a week during the season. We've got midweek, we cover the press conferences and training notes and news. We've got our big show Thursday night that we stream for about an hour and a half that just covers a myriad, including previews and news. And then we do a fallout episode the morning after our matches, trying to recap everything that goes on. So try to give a holistic picture in St. Louis, covering everything from city to other club teams, youth team, on down the pyramid from city 2 to the next team. And yeah, we just have fun doing it. Excited to be a part of this MLS world that we're all living in now. And we do our best to keep the St. Louis fans educated.
Awesome. Well, thank you so much, man. I do very much appreciate you jumping on here. And we definitely appreciate your knowledge for the newest FC Cincinnati loanee. So thank you very much, man. You have a great week. All right.
Thanks for having me on. Appreciate it. Talk to you guys later.
Thanks, Matt. Awesome. That was Matt Baker, Flyover Footy. Yeah, that's the one thing, and I'm going to give credit to my co-host here, Jeff Tebbets over here, I guess on the set screen, for having these great relationships throughout the league with his show Jersey Swap and having guys like Matt come on the show and give great analysis is a big factor with what you do with all your shows. So thank you for that. Guys, let's go around the horn real quick with Nicholas Gioacchini. Again, we got him on loan from Como, recently promoted from Serie A. What's your original thoughts on him? I'm gonna let Brian kick this off here. Are you thinking he's gonna take that top spot away from Sergio Santos, from Kevin Kelsey? Is he going to be that tip of that new sword formation that everybody's so excited for?
You know, I don't know about the formation. I think what Matt had to say may have changed my thinking a little bit. If he's playing off a number 9, we change formation back from that sword formation that we've been playing. And so maybe he plays off of a Kevin Kelsey. I think Kevin Kelsey plays better with somebody else up top. I think it's what we saw in Brandon Vasquez when he had a partner up there, played much better. And so maybe that shores things up top. I have this feeling, based on history with our club, that he may not be put in the striker position. We have a history of starting strikers, bringing them in and putting them out on the wings or putting them back in the midfield. And I'm not just talking about Kubo here. And so I just wonder, we've talked about lack of depth in our fullback and our wingback positions, that I wonder if he slots in on the right side potentially for some depth, maybe some attacking prowess if he can send the ball in. So I guess to me, I don't know if he slots in right at the top and takes that number 9 out and out position right away. I think he partners up top, or we see him in a different position. And I'll say this: my question to Matt, I was really interested because of what I've seen of Gioacchini. He is sure-footed. I've seen him on the wing. I've seen him kind of push in the middle, and he's pretty strong with the ball. But every single goal, I watched some highlights of this guy throughout the day. Every single goal that I saw him score came off a cross. And my concern is, and I said this with Kelsey earlier in the season and throughout the season as we've talked, we're not a team that sends balls in. We're a team that plays through the middle off the feet of Lucho Acosta, finding tight spaces. And if he's a guy that can run in and find the tight spaces, if he can build that trust with Lucho quickly, which we've seen that's hard to do, I think maybe he gets some more goals up there. But I'm just concerned of style of play. If he's running into space and we're not sending balls across, maybe that changes the way we play. But so to answer your question, does he take that top spot? I don't know if he does right away.
Josh, what was your initial impact when you heard that we were bringing in Gioacchini at the 11th hour in the end of the transfer window?
Full honesty, a little disappointment. I knew this team needed striker depth. So I think if you look at it from a perspective of like what the shopping list was, and you look at Gioacchini as like, oh, this is, striker depth check. Like, I think that's perfect. I think that was like great, because in the perfect world, it was, high profile DP midfielder, fullback depth, and then, striker depth, like however you ordered it. If striker depth was down the list and Gioacchini fills that role perfectly, it's like, great. He can come in, he can fight for those minutes. He can add the versatile piece of where Pat Noonan might want to play him off of Lucho Acosta, play him at the top of the shield and let him weave in and out, make the runs that Yuya Kubo makes right now, or be everything that we thought Corey Baird was going to be. Or you may like was just talked about, playing him as a second striker, playing him off of Kevin Kelsey would have been great. I think leaving the transfer window and that being your big splash, I think is a different conversation. I think we'll get into that later too. But I'm much like Brian. I'm super curious about what Pat Noonan's going to do now, because I left that conversation just now thinking like, well, shoot, what do you do now with Luca Orshano? Because if Gioacchini's got to play a second striker, you can't play that double sword now. So you got to put Orshano back on the wing back, and he's not as dangerous back there as we've seen. So, and Brian, to your point, I'll bring in the replacement that Orshano had. Alvaro Barreal's not back there whipping balls in. If Barreal was playing that left wing back and pinging those crosses in, like all of a sudden you're looking at Gioacchini as a Brandon Vasquez replacement where he can fill those gaps and make those runs into the post, and a Kevin Kelsey can be back there, or Kubo can be back there, or whoever can be cleaning up. But I don't know where the best. I don't envy Pat Noonan anymore, because this conversation gets a lot harder now of what is your most dynamic attack now. I'm kind of with Brian. I think you might see him fill a role that maybe he's not used to, and I think they might see him as kind of a, again, bringing it back an old name, bringing back a Brenner replacement, a guy who can come back, play with the ball on his feet, and maybe link up with Lucho in the midfield. Maybe it is Kelsey up top, where they can throw him and throw him the ball and he can hold up and they can both run off of him. Or maybe he comes back in and if he's pairing with a Kubo, both those guys are kind of interchanging. You kind of got a whirlwind of guys interchanging with bombers, wing backs going in, and Gioacchini's coming back and Lucho's going out. Like, maybe that's the confusion. I'm excited because I think that has that versatility, as I mentioned earlier, but I'm also nervous because I don't know where he fits in now.
Yeah, Jeff, you're shaking your head a little bit. I don't think you have the same thoughts that he might not be in that striker position.
I see him strictly as a striker or a second striker. I don't see him veering out of any spot other than up top. I think if you're going to have to fill in somebody in a left or a right wing spot, it's going to have to be Corey Baird. It's going to have to be Yuya Kubo. It's going to have to be someone who's had the experience, at least within this team, that's been able to do it. In general, though, I try to be as positive as I can when it comes to purchases and loans. I look at this and I see it screams to me Matthew Hoppe. 2023, the San Jose picked him up off of Middlesbrough for about 7 to 8 games. He scored 2 goals for you and he did well, but he wasn't there for long, and he also wasn't the solution for getting further in the playoffs. So I'm skeptical that he is the answer. He's a answer. But I still see a bunch of strikers that really have not figured out, there's no depth chart right now. They're all on the same line right now. I mean, Baird, Kelsey, Santos, and right now Gioacchini all seem to be on the same level. I don't see who's your number one and who's your sub.
The one I think you left out, though, is I think the one that's been our most dynamic striker, and that's Yuya Kubo. I think he's that number one right now. When you have Luca and Lucho playing behind him, those three play dynamically off of each other. So I think it's a matter of, do we change formation, or does he take that top spot from Kubo and you push Kubo back out into another role that he's proven that he can do?
I think you bring in, I think you have Kubo start. I'll be honest, I like the sword formation when it works. I think you bring in Gioacchini as sort of someone who parks himself next to him off the bench. And I know it's hard to say for someone that's filling the DP spot, but happy birthday to me, apparently. If you haven't seen on the audio version, balloons came up, but I don't think that he's really an answer to be a starter right now, unless they go back to the 2 striker position.
Oh, I'm so flustered right now with what just happened on your screen there, Jeff. Yeah, I think I went into this transfer window saying, what can we do to get Yuya Kubo back into that, basically 6th man role, the first guy off the bench to eat 30, 40 minutes every match to change up the game. And I'm not sure this puts Yuya Kubo out of the 11. Maybe you put Nico Gioacchini at the top of the sword with Yuya and Lucho right behind him. I mean, as Matt said, he likes to get into space. And what does Yuya Kubo like to do? He likes to get that ball and freaking dribble at the opposing team. So I think it could be an interesting little dynamic between those two. And I'm excited to see it. To Josh's point, which we'll talk about here in a second, is it's not what I was hoping for, but he's got quality. There's a reason why he's in with the Serie A club, and there's a reason, why he scored 10 goals last year with St. Louis FC. So, or St. Louis City FC. I'm going to ruin that every time. So St. Louis. So we'll put a bow on Nico. Very excited to have you. Hope you can impress our socks off for the last 9 MLS matches and into the playoffs. But it's going to be interesting to be seen. Real quick, I do want to thank another one of our sponsors, Beyond Exercise. Beyond Exercise is a local physical therapy and fitness business that helps anyone get active or stay active. In fact, they've helped Nick Hagelin and Brandon Vasquez with their physical therapy and strength training needs during their off seasons. Ask the fellas at Beyond Exercise about the ACL injury prevention screen, which is piloted with Nick and Brandon. Learn more at gobeyondexercise.com. gobeyondexercise.com. Of course, you can get in touch with us at Cincy Soccer Talk or email us at feedback@cincinnati-soccertalk.com if you have any questions, comments, or concerns about this show. Again, thank you all very much to our Patreon channel. I'm not going to be able to get to you tonight, but everybody, thank you very much for supporting us on our Patreon. Sending our photographers, our beat writers out to different matches. I think, Jeff, you're going to be going to the U.S. men's national team match. We have a photographer down in Florida, maybe 2 photographers down for the Miami match this weekend. So thank you all very much for your support on our Patreon. Keeps the lights going, and very, very appreciative for everything you guys do for us. So guys, as you'll see in the podcast show title, missed targets. There was a of course, disappointment at the end of the transfer window when Nico Gioacchini was the only new addition outside of Shodobi Awaziem that we got earlier in the window. But Tom Bogert of his newest .com, GiveMeSport.com, had an insider's piece this past week on FC Cincinnati's pursuits of some high-profile targets, those being midfielder Weston McKennie of Juventus, Josh Sargent Ford from Norwich City, and then Monterrey target striker German Berterame. Herman, I don't know how you say it exactly, but Berterame. Guys, big targets, big aspirations for FCC. Brian, you're seeing these. You got to think, God, we're going after some big dudes. We're really trying to go after some amazing dynamics not seen in Major League Soccer. Did you have that same vibe, or are you a little bit more in the? I think we were going for some a little bit outside of our comfort zone here.
I like to see us stretch. I like to see them going for the big names. I think it shows we're in it. We're here to stay. We're here to play. We're here to win something. And I said last week I wasn't convinced that Thursday morning we weren't going to see Weston McKennie walk out on the pitch, that things had died and been quiet, and I was still hopeful and crossing my fingers. And
might not be done yet. We'll see.
It might not be done yet, but I like seeing them swing for the fences. It tells me we're here to compete, and we want to play with the big boys, and we want to stay. So was I surprised? Absolutely. The first time I heard Weston McKennie's name, I was surprised when I heard Josh Sargent's name pop out. I hadn't seen German's name until the piece came out, but yeah, man, I'm excited, and I think that gives us hope. Maybe that's why we went with Gioacchini this time, because there are names that may still be in the mix that we had to save some space for in the future.
And there's some big dollars being thrown out here, Jeff. Of course, there's rumors of $20 million with McKennie. Apparently, we bid $20 million for Josh Sargent. Norwich City wanted 25 after his goal and assist this weekend. Maybe that's a 27. Who knows? And then, of course, Berterame. I think they said that we had him pretty much signed, sealed, delivered, and within 48 hours, right before the end of the window, he backed out of the deal for family reasons, which is a shock. I mean, that's amazing that the general manager, Chris Albright, was able to go out and get Gioacchini with such a short runway. But are you happy that maybe we didn't overpay, or maybe go get somebody that's going to tie us up for too long?
I'm happy is a tough word to really apply for this. I would have been satisfied if we had rolled the dice and gotten the likes of McKennie or Sargent, I think it wouldn't have been realistic. I really think that, you've got a lot of sides in play here. You've got agents on one side of the pond trying to roll for their client. You've got people over here trying to roll for our team. I think for the likes of McKennie, who I think the rumor was he was on his way out of Juventus, but now he's still there. Same thing with Sargent, and with Sargent scoring and assisting over the weekend, I don't think they're going to separate with him unless he starts to crumble as time goes by. The one that surprised me was the Bertarame bid. I mean, Portland earlier in the season tried a $15 million bid, and the rumor was that he was hemming and hawing about it, and then finally said, nope, I'm not doing it. I don't want to leave Mexico. So for them to say that he agreed to it and that he was planning to leave, but for him to back up because of family reasons, I don't know if I buy that. It feels like it is a similar situation. I don't know what FCC had to offer that was more appealing to Bertarame. Yes, you have a more of a winning culture and you have a first-year coach in Portland, but still they were playing pretty well as well. If they had gotten him, they probably would be in the top 3 or 4 in the West. So I'm a little surprised that Bertarame wasn't involved.
Some additional context to that: he was waiting for his Mexican naturalization so he could represent the Mexican national team. Apparently, he received that in early July, so that was some interest. He's Argentinian, but he had spent the required time in Mexico. So that's what I was hoping for. Maybe he could kind of get out of Dodge, but Mexican Federation loves their players to play in Mexico. So
considering how bad, or not how bad, but how moderately iffy the Monterrey squad had been playing recently, and they fired their coach, I think they were like, look, we want to hold on to as much talent as possible so that we can stay where we are in Liga MX.
Yep. Now, Josh, I was very disappointed that we didn't do what we needed to get the player like a Cucho. We didn't go get our Cucho. Yes, we had the different options there. Our window is only it's only going to be open for so long. I mean, do you have are you the guy that's going to come out and say, Albright, you failed us? Or are you that kind of, I don't want to lock myself in?
No, I said at the top of the show, takes are going to get spicy. I think this was Albright's failed window. I think he dug himself a hole. And I mean, it was widely reported for how long that Aaron Bupenza was already out the door. He was gone. Everyone knew it. And FC Cincinnati was big fish hunting. They were going for it. So everyone knew this was happening. What surprised me was, it was great to hear him, Weston McKennie. The Josh Sargent name was interesting to me. I guess that's still a big name. Obviously, he's got U.S. men's national team, aura. The name resonates. The biggest issue I have is, why was that list so small? You were willing to spend $20 million on Josh Sargent. You were willing to spend $20 million, 15 plus million on Weston McKennie. Bertarame was a $15 million transfer. Why was that list only 3 players? We won't find out. Maybe it was longer. I would love Chris Albright to have a press conference and say, hey, we swung bigger than this, or we swung here. But it wasn't a mystery to what this team was missing. And to Brian, to your point, like it's exciting to see them linked to those names. Bogart's report that Weston McKennie was in Cincinnati touring facilities. Like, that's a big deal. Weston McKennie would have been a big deal. Those other names, maybe that's the second rung. But I'm curious and questioning how deep is that? Why is that pool not deeper? What if you're willing to spend 20 million? Why did it come down to the waning hours to pull Nico Gioacchini out of a hat on a 9-game loan? I just wonder if things were lagging between player A, player B, who's player C, who's player D, who's player E, because I don't think Gioacchini is A through G plan. I think that's like literally a last minute, who do I have on speed dial that I can call? Oh, I probably have Gioacchini's agent who needs minutes.
It honestly, to me, it seemed like Bertarame was the fallback, the $15 million fallback. That scares me a little bit too. I'm glad you said that, man. I really am glad you brought that up, Josh. I mean, there's other teams out there improving their rosters. You saw Columbus go out there last year, go make the move for Rossi. And I mean, you're going to see these teams that excel over the last third of the season. They're picking up an extra, on average, like 0.3 points a game. I mean, these guys are going to be putting additional, tangible points up for their teams. And I don't think Gioacchini is going to be doing that. I don't see him as that factor. So I look at this where, okay, Awaziem and Gioacchini got us back to maybe how good we were, or our full strength at the beginning of the year. Maybe not even if you would have hoped Pensa would have been better. I don't think we overall got better. And that pisses me off. It's maybe not pisses me off, but it's exhausting. I think that might be there. It's kind of exhausting to be like, okay, we're humming, we do things differently here at FC Cincinnati. Oh my God, we just did the Reds. We pulled a move like the Reds.
Brian, you stole the words. I'm like, as soon as this ended, I was like, this smells very Castellini. This smells very Reds. You put all the press conferences to say, hey, we swung. We tried. The guys didn't want to, Nick Castellanos didn't want to come back around. We tried, and you came up with nothing. Sorry, here's what you get.
I wonder if this changes sort of the approach with the transfer window in the future. I mean, the transfer window, from what I understand, ended much earlier than the global transfer window.
But that's always happened.
But it also, from what I'm reading on the thing Tom Bogert wrote, is that Charlotte had some similar issues. They weren't able to push their guys over the finish line. Miguel Almiron, a Giovanni Lo Celso, big names. It sounded like they had a similar situation. I don't know.
So here's what I have with that, Jeff, and I was going back and forth with this on Twitter over the weekend. When you're playing in this ballpark and you get close, you need to make that deal. Okay. Yeah. Bertarame, $15 million. That's amazing. That's a ton of money. When Charlotte was going after Almiron, Newcastle wanted 20 million and Charlotte was only offering 10. We were 20 and they wanted 25 plus. I look at that and people say, Josh Sargent overpay. I mean, you heard it from Matt just a little bit ago. Like, you're going to be parading him out for 2 years before the World Cup. He's going to sell tickets. If that $5 million was really all that separated, it really frustrates me. If you look at him as that guy and you didn't pay that $5 million to get that championship vibe, that really, you just asked me for 20% more for my season tickets this past year and 15% more the year before that. I don't want to tell I'm not going to apologize for a billionaire, and I don't want to tell them how to spend their money, but by golly, we're in that ballpark, guys. You just pony up, do it. Sorry.
I totally understand. I mean, you take a look at LAFC, getting Giroud so early in their transfer window, and then
Galaxy doing Royce for a TAM deal, whatever.
Building up so quickly. It does, like, look, I was sort of on the fence in terms of what I felt the team could do, but looking now at everything, we should have swung harder. We should have maybe not delivered an uppercut, but at least a glancing blow. It feels like we missed.
I agree. I think we missed. I think that Albright and Noonan have done an amazing job with the players that they have, slotting them in, finding the right positions. And I think I have faith that they'll find a spot for Gioacchini that might not be that Cucho-like striker, but I think they'll find a spot that works, that fits him, like they've done with Orishano, moving him around the pitch and seeing where he excels the most. So I'll give them the benefit of the doubt in that. I do also think that there's probably other names, name number 3, number 4, number 5, number 6, that they couldn't go after because of the Matt Miazga injury, because of the Nick Hagland injury, that they had to push the hold button on,
Sure.
push pause
They
on
did.
that. And let's look at that later. So you heard Matt talk about, I forget the player that just St. Louis just picked up, that he said, we just learned that they were talking with them 2 years ago too, to bring them in. And so I just wonder if Albright's working the system a little bit. And if we could have gotten that big name, Weston McKennie or Josh Sargent this time around, would have been fantastic. But now we've got time to work some other deals that are kind of, behind the scenes that we don't know anything about yet.
I'm glad you said that. I mean, I put this out there when it happened, that there was teams looking at a center back of ours, one of the 2 important center backs that we would have received 2 players back from, that could have, really made a huge difference for our roster construction, and still maybe brought it in Waziem. You never know how that all pans out. So
real quick, Ryan, like
sure.
I'm hard. I'm hardline stance. I think Albright missed the boat here, but Brian, you made a great point in the sense that, this does open they didn't hamstring themselves. This winter opens the door for them to really be players again, be very big players again. I also do think though that it does put a bigger microscope on Chris Albright, because like you guys said, you can't parade an increase of season ticket sales and all these other things on, and then trot out Nico Gioacchini as the big name. Like that's a tough pill to swallow for the team. I think you almost have to bring in a big name in the winter, and
you can't miss,
which we know is harder to do. Like that's the thing. Like the summer is the time to make a move if you're doing a big Europe name, a big ticket name. Chris Albright's got his work cut out for him in the winter, and I think it's great as a fan base that we can be this kind of upset after what we went through for the first couple of years. Chris Albright did an incredible job, and I have mentioned this in the past that no matter what, he's put his name in the rafters of TQL Stadium whenever that happens already. But it's good that this fan base is upset, because that's going to push them to do better, I hope.
Yeah. I think what hurts is the timing of all of this, right? Nobody bats 1,000. Nobody hits it every single time. I think the difficulty, or the reason this hurts, is we were making a run, and we've had guys go down, and it hurts right now. And so I'm not willing to, I think I grew up in Cincinnati. I've been a Cincinnati fan all my life. I think we're quick to want our coaches and our GMs and to always make the right moves, and we're ready to be done with them when they don't, as soon as they don't. Maybe that's a big, broad statement, but I agree. It's okay to be mad and be frustrated. But again, nobody bats 1,000. I think the timing is the issue on this one.
All right, guys. Before we wrap up the show here, a couple other notes. FC Cincinnati still has time to bring in new players. The MLS roster freeze is still until September 13th. You can bring in free agents up until then. So maybe that fullback I've been praying for the past month and a half will actually come in, because while I love Yamil Assad and I've been singing Yamil Assad's praises since day one, he's not the guy that I want as my starting fullback. And I would love Luka higher up the field if we can swing that. So keep, we're not going to write off Chris Albright and his deals until that September 13th day. We touched on it earlier. Of course, the Leagues Cup, unfortunate that the team's out of there, but now it's on to Miami in the weekend and Major League Soccer. So guys, I'm going to each ask all of you before your final thoughts, what is one thing that you are looking forward to for the last third of the season? And I guess I'm going to start with mine. And I want to see Awaziem really marshal that back three. I want him to really take a leadership role. There's times in that Philly game where he just kind of ran off a little bit, kind of got a little crazy out of formation, out of shape, and allowed a couple attacking chances. So I'm excited to see if he's going to be that ringleader in the back going through the rest of the year. And hopefully we can lock down some of those numbers. So Brian, what's one thing you're looking forward to the last third of the season?
I'm going to go back to Jeff's best for this one. I think a healthy Lucho Acosta, having some time to rest through Leagues Cup. We saw him be dangerous coming in this last match, making some touches through and dribbling defenders again. I think I'm excited to see him back healthy, and with maybe Gioacchini is playing off of him. Maybe it's Kubo and Orshano up there. But I think Lucho makes things happen. And now that he's had a little time to rest, I'm excited to see what happens and really how Gioacchini fits into that. Honestly, we know that it takes a while to build trust with Lucho. And so hopefully having a couple extra days here without Leagues Cup matches, that those two can work well together in training and build a little bit of trust. So I'm excited to see a healthy Lucho Acosta and see what he can do.
Josh?
Yeah, I'm excited to find out who becomes our Diego Rossi. I pull what Columbus did last year, keep it in the back of my mind. This was Columbus was a team that was kind of wavering, kind of struggling, kind of bumpy up until right around this time when things started to finally click, and the wheels were falling off when they sold Zelarayan. And then they brought a Rossi in, and things kind of started to stabilize. And then him and Cucho started to figure each other out. And then all of a sudden, they make a run into MLS Cup. And so I think Cincinnati has that opportunity. Yes, pressure is high. Yes, expectations are high. But I think if you kind of keep the supporter shield in the back of your head as okay, that's fine. We did it last year. It'd be cool to do it twice. But if you don't make that expectation, if you focus on getting right, getting finishing, getting Gioacchini figured out and integrated, could he be the Rossi? Could he be the piece that they need to link up and to turn this thing around and to get hot when it matters most? Because again, whether we like it or not, MLS Cup is about who's hottest right now, who gets hot at the right time. And I think Cincinnati, with a little break, has a real opportunity to be that team.
Jeff?
I'll try to keep it short and sweet. I want to see the real Roman Celentano. I want to see our goalkeeper union back as the force that they came out to be. We got a glimpse at Paul Walters. He gave us a really strong game against New York City in the League Cup. I want to see the real Roman Celentano come back. He's been giving up these goals that I know that I think the first goal from Taibaribo, or maybe I can't remember which one it was. Mm-hmm. That one, I don't think he was going to save. That was a rocket into the corner. But some of the others, I feel he could have gotten his hands on. I feel he still isn't also distributing very well. I want to see Roman step it up. I want him to be what Andre Blake was in that game on Tuesday. I want him to be the super goalkeeper that we got out of the draft.
I second that.
Yes. Amen. All right, guys. Well, thank you all for joining us. Anybody have any final thoughts before we get out of here for the evening? Jeff?
Okay. Recording tomorrow for the Miami game. So listen up to a jersey swap that's coming on your podcast player pretty soon. After that, though, I am out of here. I'm going up to Maine for the weekend. So I want to give a real quick shout out to not quite Maine, but let's call it New England. The Seacoast United Phantoms, the winners of the USL 2 championship, the pride of Epping, New Hampshire. I was following them. They had some really good games against Vermont Green up there as well. New England's becoming a hotbed of soccer up there, and I'm really proud that they were able to win. And also, one of their alumni, Moise Bombito, going over to Liga 1 after a really good stint in Colorado. So everything's coming up New England for me, man.
Dig it. Josh, you have any final thoughts?
No, Jeff kind of picked it off me. I'm really
I forgot,
hoping.
man. Sorry.
No, you're good. I not that, but the Roman Celentano piece. Like I as a goalkeeper man myself, as a proud card carrying member of the goalkeeper union throughout my high school and college days, I have a soft spot for the goalkeepers, and I really hope and want to see Roman Celentano. I mean, you guys want to see Cheeto take that center back role. I want to see Matt. I want to see Roman Celentano take the Matt Miazga role. I want to see him take that next maturity step and be that vocal piece in the back that this team seems to be missing, because once he does that, he might be the best goalkeeper in the league.
He was in that conversation last year, right? For sure. If he can come back and be what he used to be. Yeah. I'll jump in with my final thought then, Brian. I think that our season, the tide of our season changed with the Miami game last time, coming out 6-1, and then we lost the next 3. I think that I'm looking forward to this match Saturday. I don't know the outcome of this, but I'm hopeful that even with a Pat Noonan-less coaching staff, that we can pull out a result of some sort against Miami, and that our season could begin to turn back the other direction, starting with this Miami match this Saturday.
Awesome. My final thought, my family got fish this weekend, a fish tank, and I named my fish Lucho. Let's go, family Lucho Weigel. We're getting it here. Guys, thank you so much for tuning in to the show this week. I appreciate you. Boston, hopefully you'll see you all next week. Guys, thank you very much, and we will see you after a big dub against Miami. See you later.